Thank you, Council President, council members, staff, administration, and of course the residents of the Township of East Brunswick. Queen Elizabeth II used the term annus horribilis at Guildhall on November 24, 1992, at a ceremony marking her Ruby Jubilee. Referencing the marriage breakup of three of her four children, including Charles and Diana, fire at Windsor Castle, and a host of other misfortunes, she was quoted as saying, "1992 is a year on which I shall not look back with undiluted pleasure. It had turned out to be an annus horribilis." The term is a Latin phrase for a horrible year, and it was actually first used in 1891 by Anglicans to describe the year 1870, the year in which the Roman Catholic Church committed to the dogma of papal infallibility, which came out of the First Vatican Council held that year. Now, I don't think that it's a stretch to say that 2020, for most of us who have lived through the pandemic, the massive toll that it's taken on our health, our economy, and on our way of life, has been an annus horribilis. We should be encouraged by the fact that after every storm comes a rainbow. Following the Spanish flu of 1918 through 1920, the nation emerged and entered the decade of the Roaring Twenties. With the advent of vaccines and modern science, I believe that we have every reason to be hopeful. And with that, we here in East Brunswick must reconcile the year 2020 and look to our future with hope and vigor. With that as a backdrop, let me take us on a tour of our departments, focusing on the accomplishments we've been able to achieve under these once-in-a-century circumstances, the damages that we've suffered, and the plans for rebirth and renewal for 2021. Despite the pandemic, the Parks and Recreation Department managed to put on 337 programs in a virtual format. While most of these were our traditional programs such as Veterans Day and Memorial Day, there were innovative new ones, such as drive-in movies, pet costume contests. The department also hosted our COVID Information Center, which provided information on local restaurants with links for menus and takeout, links for all kinds of business information for healthcare links, for medical information, testing sites, and up-to-date executive orders. Despite our efforts at normalcy, though, the fact remains that revenue for the department was down due to the fact that many of our traditional in-person programs had to be canceled. And with that comes a decrease in corporate sponsorships. Despite closing some of our sports programs and day camps this summer, we did open Crystal Springs Water Park, while most other parks and swim clubs closed this past summer. Due to the limits on attendance and the costs to provide COVID PPE and ticketing systems, revenue was down for 2020. The $380,000 loss represents a 78% decrease from 2019. Thankfully, the New Jersey Department of Community Affairs has allowed townships to write this loss over, including the parking deck losses, over a 5-year period of time. We're hoping that with vaccination, it will allow us to operate 2021 in a way that does not restrict admission, and that we can provide the great service that has allowed Crystal Springs to be ranked the best public water park in the state. We still use 2020 to provide park improvements that were long overdue. Our youth council logged in a record number of hours and saw actually an increase in membership. The Shade Tree program planted and root pruned about 200 trees throughout the township, mostly as a result of Tropical Storm Isaias in August. And we anxiously look to 2021 as a year to return to normalcy and return to many of the programs that have drawn East Brunswick residents together as a community. Fortunately, construction was considered an essential service during the pandemic, and our Department of Planning, Engineering, and Construction continued to work even during the lockdown. Despite restrictions, we did achieve some significant milestones and targets. First, we did a record-breaking number of 39 roads repaved and repaired, equating to over 9 miles of township roads. This came at a cost of $4.2 million, which is a level of investment we had not made in decades. A large section of Old Stage Road was repaired, and that was done with a combination of TTF money, which is Transportation Trust Fund money, county assistance, and PSE&G. Bike lane project continued with added bike lanes on Cranberry Road and Ruse Lane. We did security and COVID updates at all of our municipal buildings, and we began improvements at the Harts Lane DPW site in order to prepare for the entire Department of Planning, Engineering, and Construction to move to the second floor of that building sometime this year. Despite the ability to work, the economy has caused a slowdown in the market and a reallocation of projects. This is reflected in the next slide showing construction revenue. Clearly, one can see that there was a move towards home improvement projects and commercial alterations. Projects that are lined up for 2021 include a road repair and repaving on REVA, which is Transportation Trust Fund money. If we have time and available funds, we will start on the Fern Road project, which is Transportation Trust Fund money that was actually allocated for 2022. We will be doing repairs and renovations on Edgeboro Road, which comes from a $1.3 million freight grant from the New Jersey Department of Transportation. We will continue on our own local roads. However, we will only get to about 25 to 30 roads this year, set at a cost of about $2.1 million. With decreased revenues, we will simply not be able to commit the same amount of money as we did last year. We will be getting a new light on the corner of Fresh Ponds and Church, an area that's known to be high impact for accidents and traffic violations. As mentioned, we're going to move the entire department to the second floor of the Harts Lane DPW building. Freed site is going to come online. It's going to open up as a park. That is an area that was an old Superfund site off of Fresh Ponds Road that's been closed for nearly 40 years. And we're going to do a master plan re-examination, something that most towns do once a decade. Finally, we'll begin to get a look at the site plan and architectural plans for the proposed ice rink at 110 Tices, which is now Township property. Because of the disproportionate effect of COVID on our senior population, the Department of Aging was the first to be affected by the lockdown. And despite the fact that they were first to close, they will likely be the last to reopen. However, that does not mean that we've forgotten about our seniors, as the department simply needed to figure out other ways to keep them engaged and involved. The center did manage to sign up 60 new members this past year. There were virtual programs that were there and put out for those who had internet and technology skills, and for those that did not, they were played and put on EBTV for review. During the lockdown, we took time to make COVID modifications to both the center and many of the senior buses. The department received a $750,000 grant from the state for a new roof, windows, and HVAC system. Those plans were completed in 2020, and the work is presently underway. There were 11,000 Meals on Wheels that were delivered in 2020, the highest in the program's history. That would be the year to record that. There were 19,000 social service contacts during 2020 compared to 600 the year before, responding to the overwhelming needs during this past pandemic. We certainly hope to see the center and the programs open for in-person service soon. But one project that's on the horizon is a new name for the center. Our facility is simply too vibrant, innovative, lively, and spirited to be strapped with the name Senior Center. So we could do better. Everyone needs to start putting on their thinking caps. Often the unsung hero of any municipal organization is the Department of Public Works. Here in East Brunswick, we combine the department with our water and sewer utility. Water service and sewer service, stormwater management, garbage collection, road work, leaf and branch pickup. They may not sound very sexy, but try to do without them and you'll know and realize very quickly how important they really are. The past year, the department was called upon to do the following added services. They installed all of the touchless fixtures in the township buildings. They worked with the Department of Public Safety to renovate several areas in the police department, including the massive rework of the long overdue dispatch area. There was added branch removal and sidewalk repair as a result of Storm Isis this past summer. We are now into year 2 of our contract with Solterra, where we saw significant, although not unexpected, cost increases due to the higher cost of recycling and more garbage. With the lockdown, there was added garbage as more people were working from home, and there were many home improvement projects during the lockdown. This all resulted in adding tipping fees, which essentially means that the actual cost at the landfill exceeded our projected costs, necessitating a fund transfer in December to cover the added cost. We also had demolition of David's Bridals and the adjoining properties on the corner of Route 18 and Ruth Street, which is township-owned property. As it relates to the water and sewer utility, funds from the water rate increase were used for several water main repairs, pump station repairs, and SCADA monitoring improvements. Such monitoring will allow us to identify areas of weakness in the system, helping to do repairs before they break. And whether it was due to the mild weather we had this past winter or the implementation of the SCADA system, last year we continued to see a trend towards less water main breaks. This year we'll be starting our water meter replacement program, which was discussed and budgeted for with the water rate study and plan that was approved in December of 2019. Due to continued low lead and copper levels the past 2 years, as recorded by the New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection, which I might add is one of the strictest DEPs in the country, we have been allowed to reduce our sampling schedule. Where we were required to do 60 samples every 6 months, we're now allowed to do 30 samples yearly, which in the end basically means for residents that you should be very happy knowing that our water has exceeded all safety standards. Due to new aeration systems placed in our sewer collection system, there's been significant decreases in fats, oils, and grease. And as a result, biochemical oxygen demand and suspended solid loading was reduced below historical estimates, which all translates into the utility saving over $100,000 in treatment costs. While I'm on the topic of utilities, let's look at our parking utility, as that area seemed to be the hardest hit as a result of the pandemic. With so many people working from home and the lockdown during the spring, revenue in this utility was at all-time lows. As mentioned earlier, the New Jersey DCA is allowing townships to write those losses over a 5-year time frame. But more concerning is the fact that nobody knows what a post-COVID world is going to look like, making it very difficult for us to predict future demand. Several customers voluntarily relinquished their parking permits this year, and this will allow us to offer parking permits to many folks who were on the waiting list. And as you recall, before the pandemic, waiting lists were in the hundreds, and the time estimate to get a permit exceeded 3 years. Looking forward, we will need to develop a strategy for our 2 decks, the Nielsen parking deck and the transportation center, along with plans for a new parking deck as the Route 18 South part of our redevelopment project on the other side of Route 18. 2020 was also a year where we learned how important it is to stay connected and informed. EBTV played a critical role in keeping the community updated in the ever-changing world of the pandemic. Information was provided on the TV station along with YouTube and Facebook Live formats. In addition to the regularly scheduled program, this past year also included my COVID updates, census information in multiple languages. We had virtual parks and recreation programs, the election 2020 debates. We also had our Human Relation Council programs addressing the Black Lives Matter and social injustice issues which occurred over the summer, along with their continuing coffee and conversation series. We also offered free EBTV segments to many of our East Brunswick small businesses who suffered during the lockdown and during the pandemic, and as a result, many of the executive orders related to gathering put a greater burden on businesses than we could have anticipated. The Township and EBTV worked tirelessly to help our friends in the business community. While so many things changed during the pandemic, one of the things that remains constant is the fact that our Department of Public Safety, otherwise known as our EPPD, was selected by the Home News Tribune to be the best police department in Middlesex County for the 5th year in a row. Some of the notable achievements and events of this past year included, as mentioned earlier, the complete and long overdue remodeling of the dispatching center. We also had a response to several drowning emergencies that garnered national attention to the importance of water safety, swimming instruction, and the danger of walking on ice in winter in our climate. In the backdrop of the Black Lives Matter movement and the protest calling for defunding of police, officers Robert Thuring and Ryan Hensberger drew national attention once more for saving the life of a man seconds away from jumping off of the New Jersey Turnpike overpass right here on Route 18. In response to the Black Lives Matter's protests this summer, we had a very peaceful and respectful rally right here in the township. This was coordinated by a pre-rally planning between the protesters and our EBPD. There were no issues, and the event was attended by hundreds of people. The department also implemented an online reporting system and logged in about 240 reports between March and December of this year, saving countless manpower hours and limiting exposure of our officers during the pandemic. Our commitment to promoting community policing paid off in dividends during the pandemic. The area that got the most attention was the Blue Delivery Program, where the EBPD partnered with ShopRite of East Brunswick to assist seniors and those with special needs children who were unable to shop. There was also the Boots on the Ground program, where council members and myself partnered with the EBPD and went door to door to give tips on how to prevent burglaries. The unit also sponsored the Trunk and Treat drive-through Halloween program as a way to help keep our kids happy and enjoyable during Halloween in a safe manner. And that's only a small sampling of some of the programs that community policing sponsors and puts on. The unit also maintains a very close relationship with our Township Board of Education, houses of worship, and area businesses. The department received about $1.5 million in free equipment through the LISO program. This included trucks, a forklift, computers, generators, gas masks, digital cameras, and several other types of equipment. For 2021, the administration plans to continue and uphold its standards as required as part of its commitment and accreditation through the New Jersey State Association of Chiefs of Police Accreditation Series. We will continue to provide evidence that ensuring the public safety and understanding that Black Lives Matter are not mutually exclusive constructs. They coexist here in East Brunswick. One of the brightest spots resulting from the pandemic was the massive increase in demand for real estate here in East Brunswick. Properties here in East Brunswick barely stay on the market for more than 24 hours and are selling at above asking price. This surely is an anomaly for a recession or a depression, when historically we have seen massive amounts of tax appeals due to the predictable plummeting of housing values. Our assessor's office clocked in a mere 159 tax appeals in 2020 and added 102 assessments for a total increase in about $11 million in new ratables to the township. A review of the slide on total taxable properties in the town shows that we are predominantly a residential community. Additionally, despite the charged and spirited talk about apartments, our stock of apartments as a percentage of all residential units is extremely low. This will not help any appeal to the courts for relief when it is the same courts that are determining our affordable obligation. But let me reaffirm on the record and in the clearest possible way that I am an ardent supporter of the need for affordable housing, and East Brunswick will continue to do its share to meet its obligation. While we constantly review assessments, the public should be reminded that our assessments are 38 years old, and we are long due for a formal reassessment. I'm going to save most of my comments on finance for the introduction of the budget scheduled for a few weeks from now. Suffice to say that the economic fallout of the pandemic has left most townships in the state and the nation in a financial straitjacket with dwindling revenues. As I mentioned earlier, this was felt most in our pool and parking utilities. The finance office spent countless hours this year trying to capture CARES money approved from the first federal finance package this past spring. This act only provides COVID-related expenses, not loss of revenue. Fortunately, we've been able to capture about $1.8 million in expenses for the township, with another $800,000 expected in the early part of 2021. The department also helped file CARES requests for the library and our fire districts. We've been very fortunate as, despite the fact that there has been such a high unemployment rate, we've been able to maintain a 98% collection ratio here throughout the pandemic. And this has allowed us to maintain staff when services have been needed most. I'm happy to say that throughout this crisis, the township has not fired or furloughed staff. While we may not have always replaced staff that has retired or left our employment, we've managed to reallocate some jobs to areas where the pandemic has created alternative needs. As many of you know, our township has always been known for its strong, strict, and steady financial management. One need not take my word for this, as the financial rating agencies such as Moody constantly do an unbiased review of our finances when we secure debt from the bond market. We recently financed debt, and Moody's assigned us a AA1 rating. And in their own words, the AA1 rating reflects the township's substantial tax base and above-average resident wealth and income and strong finances. The rating also considers the township's favorable location with substantial redevelopment opportunities. East Brunswick's largest credit challenge are its elevated long-term liabilities driven by a significant pension and OPEB, which stands for other post-employment benefits such as retirees, healthcare costs, and the like. That's our significant risk, significant pension and OPEB liabilities and fixed costs. The coronavirus is not a key factor for this rating action. Although the pandemic will likely lead to a modest draw on reserves, the township has strong, stable finances with healthy tax collections. In addition, the township has taken the budgetary measures needed to reduce the impact of the pandemic. Their words. When it comes to debt, the public should be aware that due to our credit rating, we're able to borrow at historically low interest rates. The largest portion of the township debt comes from the Board of Education and our fire districts. But when we consider township debt only, you can see from the slide on annual debt that our debt ratio, which is the township debt as a percentage of the equalized valuation of real property averaged over the past 3 years, is 0.563%. This is an enviably low ratio. The staff, leadership, and residents of the township should all be thanked for such a sustained achievement in the midst of an economic calamity in which we find ourselves. I trust that this in-depth look at the year 2020 will serve as an example of how we as a community rose to the biggest challenge in a century and acted with compassion, purpose, and fairness. The challenges are not over, but I believe that with vaccines, science, and a strong sense of community, we have the greatest gift, hope. And in the words of Barack Obama, hope. Hope in the face of difficulty. Hope in the face of uncertainty. The audacity of hope. In the end, that is God's greatest gift to us. A belief in things not seen, and a belief that there will be better days ahead. So let us all hope that my next State of the Township address will look back upon a year and we can utter the phrase, annus mirabilis, the Latin phrase for a marvelous year. God bless the staff, leaders, and residents of the Township of East Brunswick. God bless our troops here and overseas. And God bless the United States of America.